So I'm here back at the Atherton Tablelands. I'm actually just maybe 30 kilometers to where I was yesterday morning. My plans going to Cooktown were foiled because of the virus pandemic. They're not letting people north into Cooktown, which I didn't know. So I drove maybe about 400 kilometers yesterday for no reason. So I just made kind of a big circle up to Cairns, then kind of up around through the mountains and back down here. But anyway, today I'm at the Waterfall Drive, which is around the town of Millimilla in the Atherton Tablelands, and it has three pretty famous waterfalls, starting with the first one where I'm at now, Millimilla Falls, and it's been photographed heaps. So I'm not too worried about getting a great picture of it. I just want kind of a good picture just because it's been photographed so much. But yeah, I'm going to do the loop this morning and try and take pictures of all three waterfalls. So let's go. I'm surprised I'm the only one here on a Saturday morning, but I guess it is kind of chilly, so that's probably why. But yeah, this is a pretty nice waterfall. As I said, Millimilla Falls, which is here, it is pretty famous. It's been in a couple like hair commercials or something. The commercial with the girl who like flows her hair backwards and stuff. So everyone tries to get that picture when they come here. So I have my camera set up here, and I've already got a composition. So I came to these bushes. And what I have is the waterfall framed right in between this little gap with the orange bush kind of where the waterfall is falling, and then the waterfall a little over to the left. And we are getting a lot of spray, so I've got to keep my lens cap on my camera and then take it off real quick when I'm ready to take an image, then wipe it, then put it back on, just so I can get a sharp image. Yeah, pretty nice spot. What I'm doing for my settings is shooting 1/60th of a second for ISO, f8, ISO 400. Just because I want a fast shutter speed so I can freeze the action of the waterfall. And the wind's kind of blowing these bushes in the foreground, so I want a fast shutter speed so I don't get motion blur in those as well. And I am focus stacking. I'm focusing on the front leaf closest to the camera, then I'll focus on the waterfall, which that may pose a little bit of problems just because the leaves keep moving. So when I take the different images, the leaves aren't in the same spot. But I still should be able to mask that all right in Photoshop. But I guess we'll see. Alright, so I got a picture that I'm pretty happy with here at the waterfall. I didn't use any filters or anything. There really wasn't any need because there's really no light. But it's a nice overcast day, which is perfect for shooting waterfalls. So now I'm going to pack up, head down the road, and head to the next one. So I normally don't like photographing spots that are this popular like these waterfalls, especially Millimilla Falls, but since I'm in the area and since it is a pretty spectacular waterfall, I decided to take the opportunity to shoot it, even though it's just right here's the car park and then it's just right down there, not even a 100-yard walk. So there's really no sense of accomplishment for going there to take a picture, but still it's a beautiful scene nonetheless, so I decided to get a nice photograph. And then I'll move on to the other waterfalls now and see if I can get another image or two for the day. So I'm at the next waterfall, which is Zillie Falls. And you think these waterfalls might be deep in the jungle just because when you get to them, it looks like it's in the jungle. But they're really up on the Atherton Tablelands, as I said, which is high in the mountains here in northeast Queensland. And they're pretty much just all surrounded by cattle ranches and some farms up here. So you'll drive through kind of bare, open hills and fences and see cattle. And then you'll come to these car parks where the falls are. And then they all kind of go down into a valley where the falls are. So it's kind of cool. You wouldn't think that they'd be in this location when you're driving on the circuit road here. But they are. It's just pretty interesting, I think. Now, from the viewpoint up there, there's no good compositions to take a picture, but there is this little trail that goes to the base of the falls, and I've actually been here before and done this trail previously, but if I remember right, it was very slippery and kind of hard to get down. But I think I'm still going to give it a go and see if I can make it down, and then maybe find a composition at the bottom. But yeah, it's pretty muddy and pretty slippery, and the rocks down there might be slippery too. It'd be a good little fun hike. So I made it to the base of the falls, and it's very loud, so I hope you can hear me. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up my tripod. It's really hard to find a composition here, so I think I'm going to set my tripod up low enough so I can kind of frame the falls with this tree that's leaning over there. I just hope that I can get low enough so that the top of the waterfall is going to be in the frame below the top branch of the tree. Now this is a very challenging scene. I've got a composition to where I've got these ferns in the right and this rock kind of at an angle, and then the waterfall in the top left corner. But right now we are getting some sunlight on the waterfall, which is unfortunate, and the dynamic range is very different between my foreground here, which is real dark, and the waterfall, which is very bright. So I'm gonna have to bracket my images a lot and try and combine them in Photoshop. And I'm also using a circular polarizer and a graduated filter just to kind of darken the waterfall a little bit, but I won't be able to get this shot in one exposure, unfortunately. So for my exposure, I'm at ISO 800, f8, and I'm switching between 1/80th of a second to expose for the waterfall, and then 1/8 of a second to expose for the ferns and stuff in the foreground. So it is such a difference in exposures. I'm not sure how they're going to blend together, so I'm really not sure how this image is going to turn out. And then as I'm exposing, I'm just watching my histogram to get a proper exposure. So I'll expose so none of the highlights are clipped, then I'll expose so none of the shadows are clipped. And then I'll focus on the foreground, obviously, when I'm taking the image for the foreground. Then I'll focus on the waterfall when I'm taking the shot exposed for the waterfall. So I'm leaving Zillie Falls. I could have stayed and looked for more compositions, but it wasn't really the best waterfall to photograph, just because you can't see the bottom of the falls, because normally when you photograph waterfalls, you want to get the top and where the water plunges into the water at the bottom in the frame. So there was no way to get the bottom of the falls and the top of the falls in the frame because there was all those boulders in the way. So I got the one picture, which I'm still not sure how it turned out. I got to get back and edit it and see. But yep, so now I'm gonna climb up the trail again and then go to the final fall on this little waterfall circuit. So I'm here at the last waterfall, Ellinjaa Falls, and there's actually a small hike down to the base of the falls, what I'm going to do, and then yeah, hopefully get a third image for the day. Sorry for the noise. Again, I'm right by the waterfall, so it's really loud. So I've really been struggling to find a composition. This is a quite difficult spot to shoot because there's all these trees and leaves above me. So it's hard to get the top of the waterfall and the bottom of the waterfall unobscured in a single frame. But I think I finally found a composition I like. I have these two rocks in the foreground and then just the waterfall in the background, and then kind of these leaves on the right are just framing the waterfall. So they're not obscuring the waterfall at all, they're just kind of adding another element of interest. And I've taken some test shots and I think it looks alright. So now I'm going to put on a circular polarizer because there's a lot of glare on the water. And yeah, then I'll see how it looks. So I think I'm also going to add a graduated filter just because the waterfall is so bright. It'll kind of help balance out the scene a little bit, so I might be able to get this in one exposure, but I really don't think so just because it's such a high dynamic range scene. Like the rocks in the foreground are so dark, I really have to overexpose for the waterfall in order to get detail in those rocks. Alright, so I'm bracketing my shots again, exposing to make sure I get all the details in the shadow and in the highlights. So I'm switching between 1/4 of a second, ISO 100 f8, and 1/8 of a second. Now this one I'm not getting any detail in the waterfall, it's nice and silky smooth, but for this shot I don't mind that, just because the waterfall I don't think would look too dramatic if you freeze the action, and I think kind of silky smooth looks a little bit better in my opinion. And then the polarizer does really cut off a lot of the glare in the water, but unfortunately not all of it. So I might have to take some more out in post-processing. So I'm just waiting around to see, because there's been some sunlight kind of peeking through the clouds and through the trees. That's added a little bit of drama to the scene. And it's been making these leaves in the top right corner backlit, which looks pretty cool, as well as kind of streaks over the top of the waterfall, which also looks pretty pleasing. So I'm just going to wait for a couple more minutes and see if the light changes. Well, that's all for today's video on the Atherton Tableland waterfall circuit. The pictures I got today I think were okay, nothing too crazy. Again, because these waterfalls have been photographed so many times, it's really hard to get a unique shot. So I didn't really try that much. But it was still great to see these waterfalls and great to take some images of them. Now I'm going to head back to the town of Atherton, where I'm going to stay at a hostel for the night, kind of refresh, charge my batteries, back up all my photos and take a well-needed shower, and then I'm going to plan on what I'm going to do the rest of the week and tomorrow. Well, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you later.